There's something very ugly in the Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania city and state. City and state. Something very horrific and something ugly. It's called racism. You know, Dateline, October 14, 2014, caller calls into Humanity Matters Live, sound off. Calls in, starts talking about the crazy cops, the psycho cops. Hey, that's not my words. I don't agree that they're all psycho. Calls in. Eventually we get into the conversation of violence and how the police officers are doing certain things and not doing other things, and eventually we get into the subject of racism. Well, the reality is, I don't know the percentage of good cops versus bad, corrupt versus non-corrupt. I don't know. I happen to think that probably at least 4 out of every 10 or 6 out of every 10 are good, at least I hope. And it could be anywhere in the United States for that matter. But what I do know is racism is prevalent. Prevalent throughout the entire United States. But it's pretty bad in the Pittsburgh area. And you know, there was a conversation yesterday I didn't really agree with. But I'll tell you something. The term racism came up a lot. A young man who happens to be African American said he will never be anything other than a black man in the eyes of the police and many other people. Well, I refuse to accept that. To me, he's just Michael. To me, he's just a human being. Why must we have racism? Is it fear? Is it evilness? What if you're a racist? Are you evil? Just because somebody is not your religion, not your pigmentation, and maybe not of your persuasion sexually, what right do you have to hate them or mistreat them or profile them? I think it's time we wake up to the truth. I think it's time we stop the racism and we solve all these murders of all these young black men and young black children, just as we would solve the murders of any Caucasian, Asian, Hispanic, or any pigmentation. More importantly, let's end racism. Let's work to end racism and start looking at people as a human being, as Mike, as Jane, as Jim, as Al, as Pete, as LaShonda, or, you know, Askine, or whatever her name could be. Isn't it a little bit time to end racism and hatred based on nothing more than the way somebody looks? And let's end classism while we're at it. You know, it's time to start having love. Now, for any of you who are racist, and I want you to search in your souls, figure out how many times you didn't want to be around somebody because maybe they were gay or maybe they were Chinese or whatever it is. And then ask yourself also, do you consider yourself a Jew? Do you consider yourself a Christian? Do you consider yourself a religion? Is the doctrine and dogma, does it not say you're to love all? So if in fact you are racist, how then can you claim to be a Christian? How then can you claim to be even an officer of the law to serve and protect when a lot of people you are terrorizing, you're not serving them, you're harassing them and doing everything that you purport to believe in, you're doing the opposite of. You're not just a hypocrite, you're a liar. And yes, I have said the word, you're a liar. And guess what? You can't love God. You can't be a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim if you have hate in your heart for somebody who is not. And if you're an extremist or a terrorist, we, the rest of us, need to legally and peacefully fight back to end your terror. You see, my ideas may seem impossible, but nothing is impossible. And if you believe in God, haven't you ever heard, through God all things are possible? Don't you believe? You go to church all the time, you read the Bible, you pray, or whatever religious organization and denomination and, religion you're in. But you don't really live it, do you? Pretty big accusations, aren't they? Well, let me ask you this question. Let me get real. Do you think that God, that Jesus, would have ever rejected anybody because of their pigmentation? Because of their gender? Because of their ways? I know the Bible said you're not supposed to lay down with another man and all that stuff. You really think Jesus would have treated anybody like that? I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a minute. How about you change? How about we end the way we act, some of us, and start loving people and having compassion? That's all I got to say for this video. But by the way, if you're one of me, if you're one of the good guys, one of the good girls, I want to hear from you. ACTORAJ2@gmail.com. Talk to you soon.